today is David Wiley. He's from Medicare Solutions Network. We've had David here many times before and explaining the whole Medicare system. I feel like I learn more each time I listen to him. He's an independent insurance broker, and him and his team represent virtually all the insurance companies available in Illinois. So by being a broker for all those agencies, that empowers him to be able to share information and education and help people comparison shop so that you can find the best possible solution for yourself. So he knows that knowledge and good health can combine to save thousands of dollars during the Medicare journey. He lives in Woodridge with his family, and he speaks at a lot of local libraries, retirement homes, and financial planning offices. So he's an agent and advisor, and he's an advocate for his passion is for helping people navigate the world of Medicare and saving folks money in the process. So let's give a warm welcome to David, and thank you all for coming.
I said it better myself. Quick test here. Everybody picking me up? Is this microphone on? Can you guys hear me in back? Are we good? Nance, can you hear me back there? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Good. Good evening. Everybody, welcome. You seem so excited about the world of Medicare. This is great. Great turnout. And I would expect nothing less at this time of year, because it is the most wonderful time of year. It's Medicare open enrollment. Anybody seen a commercial lately? A little later, Joe Namath is going to be here to try to pitch you on a Medicare Advantage program. What we want to do here tonight is an overview of Medicare. And certainly we can be more specific now that we're in the world of open enrollment. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, but let's try to keep them germane to the topic, because in this world there's a lot to cover here tonight and not a lot of time to do it. Started teaching this course about 10 years ago now, because I found so many people that would come to the world of Medicare and they would what I would call make less than fully informed decisions. That means they made mistakes. You'll feel a lot like this guy when you first come to the world of Medicare. If you could assist me, please. There's no shaming here tonight, but can I get a show of hands? How many people are already in the world of Medicare? Okay, about half, maybe even a little bit more. So you might have been here before and been very confused about a world where your employer used to make all those decisions for you. In the world of your health care, the employer would come to you once a year and they'd say, here it is, take it or leave it. And now you come to a world of Medicare, which is, thank you, which is a little bit different. Now you get to make decisions about your coverage. And what we want to do here tonight is talk about that coverage. My name is David Wiley. I'm an independent insurance broker. I'm joined by Robin Dawson, who is one of the same here tonight, but we are not here to sell you anything. We're here tonight to educate and hopefully make this world a little bit more understandable and a little less cluttered. In this world of Medicare, I assure you, it is a world of partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks that you wouldn't even know were there if you didn't know who to ask and you didn't read all the boilerplate. Your TV set now has a commercial. Just about every other commercial is about Medicare. And it's screaming at you with big things, but then if you notice where it says phone number underneath there, there's all this legal boilerplate. Maybe one time if you could read that, that would be nice, but it's up there for about 4 seconds. In that world, you want to understand that's advertising. First thing that you want to know is there have been no big changes to Medicare. That is not true. You also want to know that anything that you've got right now will roll over automatically to the next year. You don't really need to do anything. You'll still be covered. So all the mail that you get that says your coverage may be ending, it isn't. And things may have been big changes. There haven't been. But in this world, it's pretty steady. We do see incremental increases in costs every year, but we certainly want to be prepared for that in a world where we've got 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. What we want to do here tonight is to give you an overview. What is Medicare? What does it do? What does it not do? What does it cover? What does it not cover? And what are your options for additional coverage? This time of year presents unique opportunities to possibly change your coverage a little bit, maybe tune it up a bit. We want to talk about that here again tonight. This, as always, is the first part of your defense against rising costs. You have a new best friend in the world. It's called Medicare. It's a federal government program for folks that are over 65 years of age, and one of the cornerstones of Medicare is education. If you'll avail yourselves of it, this is the Bible of my industry. If you haven't received your 2020 copy already, it's either in the mail or you need to call them up at 1-800-MEDICARE and order it. They'll send it to you free of charge. This is the truth. Everything that fills up your mailbox, that's propaganda. As you turn 65, you'll find that you start to be carpet bombed by the insurance companies because every one of them wants to send you something about the products that they sell, and there's many products. One of the great parts of Medicare is tremendous competition, and I would tell you that capitalism, when kept on the rails, can actually help to keep costs down if you avail yourself of these opportunities. The book is backed up by the world's easiest phone number. You don't even have to write it down. It's 1-800-MEDICARE. Pretty simple, right? This time of year, they're there 24 hours a day. And like Jake from State Farm at 2 in the morning, they're waiting for your call. The phone number and the book are both backed up by an excellent website called Medicare.gov. Please note that, G-O-V, gov, not Medicare.com for the life of me. I don't know how they let Medicare.com come to market. It's confusing. People go there thinking that they're getting government information, you're getting a sales pitch. Be very careful about websites that you visit. They'll capture your information and they'll sell it to multiple agents, and those agents will all start calling you as well. Your phone rings off the hook, your mailbox fills up. Now it's got even more incestuous. We have your medical groups that are texting you about taking a minute for Medicare, right? They want you to come in and listen to their sales pitch. You have to kind of find your way through the clutter. And it's a confusing time, I get that. But in that world, understand that whatever you've got is going to roll over to next year, but maybe we might make some tweaks and improve it. One of the ways we could do that would be visiting this Medicare.gov website and the tool that the federal government gives us that allows us to check your drug program every year and make sure that you're in the best possible drug program for the next year. Every year on the prescription drugs, you get a do-over. It's called the open enrollment period. And if you didn't know it, we're in it right now. From October 15th to December 7th, you have the right to explore your options. You can do that right here at the website. You could do it by calling 1-800-MEDICARE. They'll run your meds for you. We have SHIP counselors that are there to help you as well. And agents, we work with our clients on this as well as a courtesy to try to make sure they're in the best possible program for the next year. If you sleep on this, that fault is on you. Because there's the potential here. It can usually be pretty low-hanging fruit. I had a woman just last week. She didn't realize that her drug program had escalated from the first time that she took it because she had those premiums taken out of her Social Security check. You can have your drug program taken out of your Social Security check. Never recommend that because when you take eyes off, you don't realize that it had escalated to $135 a month. And she couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting cost of living increases through Social Security. It's because her drug program was chewing it up and she didn't bother to look at it. And now at 82, we've moved her to the right drug program. The right drug program for her for next year is $15.50 a month. It's pretty amazing when you come to that realization. And one of the things that you want to know about is most people that are going to brag to you about having saved a bunch of money because they changed things, the reason they're saving a bunch of money is because they didn't make fully informed decisions when they first came to Medicare. It's always a good thing to know what we're doing here, and that's what we want to do here tonight. What is Medicare? Pretty simply, it's the government health insurance program for folks over 65. As long as you've worked 40 quarters or your spouse has in your lifetime, you're entitled to this program. And it's a wonderful program. But the key takeaway from this slide is to understand that Medicare was never designed to cover 100%. You were always expected to be reaching into your pocket for deductibles and co-insurance, co-payments, things of that nature. Medicare good but not complete, and that's why we want to understand what it does and what it does not do and what we can do about that. This is where your journey begins. This is the old Medicare card here. And somebody finally figured out that maybe putting your Social Security number on a document wasn't such a smart thing. So we've now moved, the computer is spitting out random generated numbers and letters. That's much better from a security standpoint. It's excellent for comedy. I've got a guy that's got AK-47. I've got another guy that's UFO. I've got a woman that tragically has VD. But in that world, look at your card. You may find some comedy there. This is where your journey would typically start, and most people, I would suggest to you that your parents probably started Medicare A and B when they turned 65. That's when you can first get it, the first day of the month in which you turn 65. Medicare always operates on the first day of any given month. But turning 65 used to be the finish line. You know, you'd work till 65, you'd retire, you'd take this thing, they used to have these things called pensions. You guys ever heard about those? You'd take your pension and you'd retire. You'd take your gold watch and you'd take the grandkids fishing. But the baby boomers are driving significant changes in this marketplace, and one of the most marked changes is they're not ready to retire at 65. They're in better shape at 65 than their parents were at 55, and they want to continue to work. And if they do, this represents one of the first potholes that you could have in the world of Medicare, a world of partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks. And one of the things that you'll hear is your friends will tell you, and they mean you well, when you come to the world of Medicare, when you turn 65, you've got to enroll in Medicare or there's going to be penalties. The world is going to come crashing down around your ears. And that's a partial sentence because you could be subject to penalties when you turn 65 if you don't have creditable coverage. Creditable coverage means you continue to work where you have benefits through your employer and that there's at least 20 people that work there. If 20 people work there, that can be considered creditable coverage, and that can allow you to delay activating Part A and Part B. You can wait further down the road. Yes, please.
Okay, the Medicare health insurance, the new one, is that like the day you start, March 1st, 2016?
No, that would be the first day of the month in which you turn 65, or later if you wait. How can you wait? You have creditable coverage through your employer. If you have creditable coverage through your employer, you could hold off on activating this, and I just worked with a gentleman yesterday. Very sad. He turned 65, he listened to his friends and family, he activated A and B, and yet he has stayed on his wife's insurance through work, solid gold insurance, and now he just turned 82 years of age. To find out that he did not need to activate this, and he's been paying premiums for this Part B now for, what's that, 17 years for something that he was never going to use because his wife's coverage was standing in primary coverage. We're going to keep this focused here tonight. Yes, please.
Okay, I have this started in 1998. Do I have it updated?
No, you won't. You will keep that same effective date, but you'll get a new card with a new number on it for security purposes. That's what's happened. So in this world, you could go ahead and activate A and B if you wanted to when you turn 65, or you could hold off, because if you've got creditable coverage, you wouldn't need to be paying this Part B premium. A and B cover us for different stuff. We're going to break that down in just a second. Understand that A has no premium, so typically activating A couldn't hurt you. Yes, sir?
You still need to enroll, though, right?
You do not if you've got creditable coverage. That's a partial sentence, a half-truth, and an asterisk all rolled into one. In that world, you won't even get this card unless you've activated your Social Security benefit payments. They won't send it to you automatically, and they won't enroll you automatically. They'll wait to hear from you. You could continue to work for as long as you want to continue to work, and as long as that coverage is creditable coverage, when you roll off it, you could go ahead and activate A and B at that point in time.
No penalty, even if you're second.
If you have creditable coverage, there is no penalty. Your friends will tell you different. Your friends will tell you, you got to sign up or the world is going to fall down upon you, but you don't. And people make that mistake. My gentleman yesterday at 82, and he's doing the math in his head, he didn't need B for 17 years. Well, that Part B has a premium. That's why you might want to hold off on it. And that premium is graded. It goes up. The more you make, the more they take. But in this world, we won't start A and B if we have creditable coverage. If we continue to work there, we could hold off on that. If you've activated Social Security, they'll send you the card automatically. If you haven't activated Social Security, they're just going to wait to hear from you. We can do that on the computer, pretty easy, or you can go down to Social Security and spend a couple of quality hours with interesting people. But you might decide to hold off on this A and B until you've retired, and you could potentially save a lot of money. A can't hurt you because A has no premium. And unless you have what's called a health savings account type of insurance, and you know what I'm talking about if you do, you shouldn't activate A or B because it would stop you from being able to make your tax deductible contributions into your HSA fund. But if you have a standard regular PPO, and that's usually identified by co-payments to see the doctor, then you could go ahead and activate A. Can't hurt you. But that B, you probably wouldn't want to pay the premiums for B because you've got your coverage through work. You'd be double covered. It wouldn't make sense. That Part B does have a premium. The base premium this year is $135.50 per month per person. Everything we talk about here tonight is going to be individual. There's no family Medicare. It's all done in an individual chassis. But understand that the government needs to feed this beast. This thing is really expensive. In this world, that $135 is the base premium based upon your income. But they're going to look at your income. The only way they can see your income is by looking at your tax returns. In 2019, we can only see your 2018 returns. Your 2018 returns actually report what you made in 2017. On a 2-year look back, did you make more? Because if you made more, they're going to charge you more. And it steps up pretty quick. $170K for a married couple filing jointly. But as we start to scale up into higher income brackets, we'll pay more for the Part B, and we'll also get a kick on the Part D. This is called IRMA, your income-related monthly adjustment amount. If you see it coming, you might consider taking evasive action. At 62, 63, 64, you're making financial decisions that will have a sonic boom effect farther down the road. Medicare's got a heart. You could appeal these numbers if you've had what's called a life-changing event. A life-changing event means that maybe you've retired. Maybe you killed it in 2017. Maybe you did great in 2018, but in 2019 you've retired, and if you've retired, your income has come down. If your income has come down, these numbers would come down as well. Medicare will adjust this every year. They'll look at it, but it's going to take them 2 years of tax returns to figure out that they overcharged you when you retired. We'd want to appeal these numbers. People that I work with say we've never made this kind of money before in our lives, and yet we're paying a higher amount. Why is that? Well, did you take some money out of your 401k? That's a taxable event. Did you sell some stocks? That's a taxable event. These things can have an effect down the road. We counsel our clients. We have a lot of sole proprietors, husband and wives. They run their own business. They've been very successful. They're making nice money. You could see this coming, and you could see the possibility that maybe the wife starts to file individually and the husband files individually. Well, why is that? Because there would be no need for both of the couples to spend this higher amount of money. If she files individually and we pay her less than $85,000, she would pay the minimum. He would pay more down here. Got to see it coming, got to understand how it works, and talk with your financial planner about this. I love my government. I just don't want to give them one more nickel than they're already taking, okay? There's 4 different parts to Medicare. A and B will form the foundation. You got to have A and B to do anything else. But once you've got A and B in place, we're going to realize here pretty shortly, good, but not complete. We would want to add a drug program for sure. That would be smart. And we might even want one of these Medicare Part C things. These are called Advantage programs. These are the things that they're screaming at you on TV about. 0, 0, 0. But remember, all that glitters is not gold. They definitely have a place in the market, but we certainly want to be sure of the parameters of that coverage and the specific details, which you're not going to get in a 30-second commercial. Everybody have one of these? This is the roadmap to Medicare. Robin's got them if you need them. Raise your hand if you don't have one. Robbie, you got a couple up here? I like this because it is simple. Most of the stuff that you're going to get in the mail from these insurance companies is very confusing because it's very intricate, and they use lots of colors and they use lots of symbols and things. This keeps it pretty basic and pretty simple. What we want to understand is that original Medicare is based upon you having Medicare A and B. Once we've got A and B and we understand it's good, but it's not complete, we're then going to look to these other parts of the insurance world, and that's where Robin and I play. All these other parts are brought to us by private insurance companies, standing in support of Medicare or possibly in replacement of Medicare. One pathway has us using A and B in primary position. That's called original Medicare. That gets you access to the largest PPO known to mankind. It's called Medicare. Any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare and you're in. But it's not complete, so we'd want to add a drug program and we'd want to add a supplement. Together, that would form one pathway called Original Medicare. But there's another pathway called Advantage, a different idea. This is where the federal government would pay a private insurance company, and that private insurance company is going to step in and now run everything for you. By definition, we call them Medicare replacement plans because literally on this side of the equation, you'd put that Medicare card away. Over here, you're running everything through a single insurance company. How do we drive down the cost of health insurance? How do we limit the premiums of what we're spending? One way is to reach deeper into your pocket. And we're going to see that there's products on this side of the equation that have no deductible, and they're pretty expensive. Or they have a deductible, and they're less expensive. Or they have a deductible and co-payments, and they're even less expensive. Or maybe they have a higher out-of-pocket. That drives costs down. That's one way to control costs. The other way to control costs is by agreeing to maybe seeing a tighter, smaller network of doctors where they've ground on them for better reimbursement rate. What Advantage does is it combines those two concepts. It's co-payments for every little thing you do on a narrow chassis of doctors and hospitals, but that can result in much lower premiums, even the fabled zero that they're talking about on TV. But to do anything, we've got to have A and B in place first. So let's start at the beginning. What's A? Two parts to Medicare. Part A is the beginner. If there was one word for A, it would be facilities. All of the buildings that you're going to come into contact with in the world of healthcare are going to bill up under Medicare Part A. Certainly, there could be no more important building in the world of healthcare than the hospital. But the hospital's not free. We're going to cover it, but we're not going to cover all of it. From the hospital, maybe you've stabilized, but you still need round-the-clock care. That would be a skilled nursing facility. That would be rehab or step-down. We know them in the industry as SNFs, skilled nursing facilities. Again, wonderful coverage, but not complete. You could be reaching into your pocket there as well. Home health services, those are going to bill up under Medicare Part A, and that's where we'll send a medical professional right to your door to assist you with things that are of a medical nature. But by definition, those home health services, they're for a very short period of time and typically for major stuff that's gone wrong. It's not just going to be to come over and trim your toenails or do the dishes. They're there for wound dressing or administration of medications. They're not going to stay very long. It's a handful of physical therapy visits to get you back on your feet and get you out the door. And the last part of A would be hospice. And that's where we're either going to a hospice facility or in the privacy of your own home. But in that world, that's all going to bill up under A. A has no premium. Agents will tell you it's free. It's not free. You paid a boatload in taxes your entire life. They just don't charge you more when you come to the party. So there's no premium on A, but there's clearly exposure, things that you're going to be paying for in that world. Sorry about that, just don't like the light behind me. In this world of Medicare Part A, this is what this exposure looks like. You've got a hospitalization co-payment. That co-payment this year, if you go spend just one night in the hospital, $1,364. But it's not quite that daunting. It's for one night in the hospital, but it's actually for up to 60 nights in the hospital, and upon discharge continues to cover us for 60 days. So you go in for your appendectomy. You're in there for 2 nights. The first night, you're responsible for the $1,364. The second night's covered because you made your co-payment. And it all goes well. You're in there for 2 nights. And you go home, and 3 weeks later, you've got nothing better to do. You decide to have a heart attack and go back into the hospital. You'd be covered because you're in your benefit window. But on day 61, that whole thing resets. So if all you have is original Medicare, you could hit that hospitalization co-payment several times in a year if you really put your mind to it. From the hospital, we could be discharged and go to a skilled nursing facility. That's where you're going to get 24-hour care, but they don't have an MRI machine on every floor, so this is much less expensive. Medicare likes that, and they'll cover us for up to 100 nights of skilled nursing. The first 20 nights would be no charge to you, but the next 80 nights, 21 through 100, there is a copayment. That copayment is $170.50 per night for those additional nights. Noting that after 100 nights, Medicare says game over. We're not going to cover you for long-term care. We're going to get you back on your feet and we're going to show you the door. And if you can't get out in 100 nights, then you would be paying for all of that on your own. Or if you have what's called a long-term care insurance policy, if you haven't looked at that, maybe you want to, long-term care could step in and start picking this up, and that could be a good investment. It's not cheap, but it's worth looking at. In a world of Medicare, I said where there's partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks, as good as this benefit is, we have to put an asterisk there because it does have a trigger point. To get this skilled nursing benefit, you need to be admitted into the hospital for 3 nights. I see a couple of nodding heads. These days, there's 2 ways that we can get into the hospital. One, you've been admitted. That means there's a diagnosis and there's something, we're going to find it and we're going to fix it. In that world, you could also get into the hospital under what's called observational status. Observational status means you're not officially admitted to the hospital. You can spend the night. We'd like to keep an eye on you. The doctor definitely feels that it would be better to have you 45 feet from the emergency room than a 45-minute ambulance ride, but you're never officially admitted to the hospital. Observational stays will be paid for by Medicare, but they will not tick the 3 nights necessary to get your skilled nursing benefit. And this is critically important in the world of healthcare. I always want to know, this is my coverage, who's paying for it, what are my options, and how much is this going to cost me? We want to defend ourselves at all times. I've seen people that have been in the hospital for more than 3 nights, they went to skilled nursing, only to find out after the fact, as they got stuck with the bill for skilled nursing, oh no, you were in observation, you were never officially admitted. We always want to know what's going on in that realm. Home health services, wonderful. 0 charge for that, but again, very limited in the duration. And hospice, I put down 5%, but that's hardly fair. Medicare almost picks up everything, but there can be a very small copayment for the medications you take to remain comfortable before you pass away. So there's A, no premium, but clearly exposure. Let's talk about B. If A was all of your facilities, B is all of your services, all of the services that we utilize. B does have a premium because this is the majority of what we're going to be using and coming into contact with. That premium, the base premium, $135.50, but again, graded for income. The more you make, the more they're going to take, so we want to keep an eye on that. But in that world, your services, all of the doctors that you see, all of the specialists that you see, whether you saw them in the hospital, you saw them in their office, they're billing up under B. There was an anesthesiologist that knocked you out so a surgeon could operate on you. Wait a second, that happened in the hospital. I agree. But that's the facility charge. That's the gurney and the bright lights. Everybody that worked on you is coming up under B. All of your lab work, everything from a blood test to a biopsy. All of your diagnostic testing, this is what we would call the expensive alphabet soup. EKG, EEG, MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, stress test, mammogram, all of these are going to come up under Part B. DME would stand for durable medical equipment. You get out of the hospital, maybe you need a walker or a wheelchair, or maybe you got a new pacemaker or a new knee. All of that would be durable medical equipment and would bill up under B. You guys should know by now that PT stands for pain and torture. Do you know that one? The ambulance that takes us to the emergency room, everything that they do there. We could use this surgical center but not spend the night. In and out on the same day is called outpatient surgery, and this has become terrifyingly common. Robin and I had a client 2 weeks ago, full hip replacement. Complete and total hip replacement done on an outpatient basis. This is getting a little crazy. I mean, this would have kept our parents in the hospital for 4 or 5 nights and probably in skilled nursing for a week, and now you're coming in at 6 in the morning and leaving at 8 at night, and don't forget your suitcase full of meds. It's kind of crazy. But outpatient surgery, you've never officially been admitted. So in that world, that's where the observational stays would bill. The observational stays would be paid for by Medicare, but they would not be ticking the 3 nights necessary to get you that skilled nursing benefit. And the last part of B, critically important, called clinical RX. These are medications that are delivered in a medical setting. Typically, this is the god-awful stuff. Chemotherapy, kidney dialysis, radiation treatment, big ticket stuff. Medicare's got your back. But it also presents an opportunity for possible savings if you're making fully informed decisions. And what I mean by that is, Doc, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what are my options? These days, there are medical miracles available to us, and there's certain medications that you have an opportunity. Maybe you get it delivered in the doctor's office, or maybe you can go get that drug down at the local pharmacy, Walgreens or Jewel-Osco or CVS. But the issue is, if you're running it through your Part D drug prescription program, that's the stuff that we're getting at Jewel-Osco and Walgreens. If you run it through your Part D drug prescription program, you become subject to this thing called the donut hole or the coverage gap. Anybody familiar with the term? What runs us towards the coverage gap is not what you're spending for the med, it's the retail value of the drug that moves us towards this thing called the coverage gap. We're going to talk more about it later, but I assure you, if you have the opportunity to have the drug administered in a doctor's office or a clinical setting, that will be infinitely less expensive to you than if you go and take it in the privacy of your own home. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. You made money your entire life, pay whatever you want to pay, do whatever you want to do to remain comfortable. From a purely cold financial aspect, if you have the option, I'd have it delivered in the doctor's office. It's an inconvenience, but it could save you a small fortune. A and B structure differently. A kind of has a pay-as-you-go mentality, right? You go to the hospital, you pay the $13.64 every 61 days, the skilled nursing, those things. But B has a different structure. B has an overall annual deductible. That annual deductible must be satisfied after you've paid that initial deductible. Then Medicare is going to step in and start splitting bills with you. They start cost sharing. The deductible this year is crazy. It's $185. And if you can wrap your mind around that number, you're better than me, because in a world where you couldn't find a doctor visit for less than $185 at retail, I challenge you to find a blood panel that retails for less than $200, but the first $185 is on you. After that, Medicare is going to then step in and start splitting bills with you 80-20. They pick up 80 cents on the dollar. They hold you responsible for 20 cents. And if that wasn't good enough, and that's pretty amazing. I mean, I'm on the Affordable Care Act. I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but it's a nightmare. I mean, I pay $1,000 a month to carry a $7,000 deductible. And I know they've told you how good it is on TV, but I'm telling you, there's nothing affordable about the Affordable Care Act. I look at this and I salivate. That $185 at retail followed by 80-20 is pretty excellent, but it's even better than that, because once you've paid the $185, call it that little dash right there, Medicare starts taking their negotiated discount. I saw some people raise their hands. There's no shaming here. But has anybody seen a Medicare explanation of benefits? Have you seen the discount that they take on services? It's amazing. Client I had, full knee replacement, retails for $68,000. Medicare says that's wonderful. We pay $9,000. On the $9,000, you're responsible for basically an 80-20 split and the hospitalization charge. It is amazing coverage. And I'll tell you here, for $135 a month, don't think for a moment the government's figured out how to run health care for $135.50 a month. It cannot be done in your wildest dreams. The government drops north of $800 a month on each of us in the world of Medicare. They make up the difference with tax dollars. That's why those taxes keep going up. But in this world, the good news is it's an unlimited benefit. If you need 5 knee replacements in a year, they're going to pay for 5 knee replacements in a year. But the problem is, with the unlimited benefit is unlimited exposure. And every 61 days, they're going to want their $13.64. And if you stay longer in skilled nursing, they want their $170. And certainly hope you never need a hospice benefit. $185, I'm sorry, to anybody in the under 65 market, that's a joke. That's an amazing number. But it's that 20%. That's the one that's going to grab your attention, because we all have friends or family. They've been in the hospital for a relatively short period of time, and you've been floored by the retail that you see there. And even with the negotiated discount, it's still kind of scary to be running out there without a safety net, without a firewall, without anything to stop this 80-20 and everything just going crazy. And that's why, in addition to original Medicare, people will look to pick up additional coverage from private insurance companies that are going to step into a world where we've got 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. If you can wrap your mind around that number. Insurance companies lay awake at night trying to figure out how they can work their way into that market. That's why they're advertising like crazy. This is big, big business. Did you ever stop to ask yourself why you've seen that same commercial 17 times in 2 days? How do they pay for that? It's big money. A and B, good but not complete. Then we have 2 pathways to consider. One pathway called Original Medicare, where we're going to have A and B in primary position. And this is a tectonic shift. People are unprepared for this because their entire life they've always had one mindset. I've got Aetna, I've got to stay with Aetna. I've got Humana, I've got to stay with Humana. I've got Blue Cross, I've got to stay with Blue Cross. In the world of Medicare now, you've got to stay with Medicare because here, Medicare is in primary position. Any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare and you're in. Okay, but wait a second, you said it's not complete. I know, so we'll look to add a Medicare supplement, a package of benefits brought to us by private insurance companies that could step in and pick up some or even all of that exposure of what Medicare doesn't cover. These companies line up around the block, and Medicare says, okay, you can play, but if you're going to play, you got to play by our rules because Medicare is the new sheriff in town. And Medicare has designed a field of play, a level field of play, where all the insurance companies that want your business, they duke it out. And here it is. The world of Medicare supplements, also known as Medigap plans. This is the second page on your 3-page handout. We've just detailed out for you what A and B cover. Good, but not complete. So now we look to customize a package to whatever you want it to be. It can be very lavish or it can be more Spartan. But this is where the fun begins for Robin and me because we're able to start to look at your specifics and find out a good fit. Medicare allows 10 packages of benefits to come to market. But understand that Medicare is dictating what these letters represent, not the insurance companies. Wait a second. You're telling me that G from Blue Cross Blue Shield is similar to G from Mutual of Omaha? No, it's identical coverage because Medicare says what G is, not the insurance companies. Wait a second. Does my doctor take Mutual of Omaha? I know he takes Blue Cross Blue Shield. Wrong question. Does your doctor take Medicare? Medicare is primary. That's what's driving the conversation. All these guys are doing is fighting out on a level field of play for your business. We currently have 39 of these companies that want your business. And we can see what all of them are doing. And we can price all of them. And we can use that to our advantage because capitalism kept on the rails. You can see quite a difference between these different companies. But the first thing you want to figure out is where do you fall on this scale of need? Let's figure out what you want and then let's go and price it. And although there's 10 packages of benefits, you say, my God, why 10? Because there used to be 14. We're trying to make it easier to understand. But in this world of 10, I'd suggest to you circle 3, the big 3 that drive the conversation. If you were to capture all of the F and all of the G and all of the N, you'd get at least 90% of all supplements currently being sold would fall into one of those 3 buckets. And it's good cross-reference for us to see how this all works. This F is still very, very popular, and I think it's popular for 2 reasons. One, it's really easy to understand. F is a package of benefits that as long as you write that check every month and mail it off, F is going to wipe out all that exposure that we saw with A and B. Literally, you'd have no deductible, no coinsurance, no copayments. It's pretty much unlike any coverage you've ever had before in your life, unless maybe you were a member of Congress at one point in time. Unbelievable and fabulous and wonderful, but hang on a second. I know how these insurance companies work. They're happy to do whatever you want them to do, but the more they do, the more they charge. And it doesn't take long if you really analyze this and you look for value, not for ease. And I understand it's very simplistic to understand that you don't have to worry about nothing. Those 5 knee replacements you never saw, Bill, it was all covered. Fabulous. But on that F, you're paying a lot for that convenience. Female turning 65 currently, that F ballparks, many companies want your business, many different prices, but I would say a good average would be about $165 a month for that F. But then you take just a brief moment, take a deep breath and analyze What about G? G is a better value, and the reason G is a better value, G does everything F, it does almost everything F does. There's one thing, you're going to reach into your pocket and you're going to pay for something. F pays for it, but overcharges you for the simple convenience of just picking up that Part B deductible. That deductible of $185, put $185 right in there. And you would have a deductible, just like on your automobile insurance, just like your homeowner's insurance. You pay a little bit up front and it drives premiums down. And your question has to be, well, how much down? Is it worthwhile to make that change? I would say it is. That female turning 65, ballpark it at 165, we can bring that G in for under 120. She's going to save $45 a month because she agreed to pay the first $185. Yeah, 45 times 12. She's going to save $540 a year because she gave back the first $185. That's a no-brainer financially. And what you see is you're swamping the deductible. And I had a very interesting conversation 2 weeks ago. I've got a client in Florida, and she sends me an email because everybody in her community is on one of these community emails, right? And she sends me the email that everybody down there's got F, because F is the best. F covers everything. And she sends me this email, and there must be 24 entries. We got F, it covers everything. We got it from Harry, it's the best, never see a bill, it's phenomenal. All the way, and she sends me that email. And I wrote her back. I wrote her back. I said, hang on a second. In Florida, F is $50 more per month than the G. You're paying $600 more per month on the, per year on the G, on the F rather, and the only difference you're getting for your $600 is for $600 they're paying the $185 deductible. And then I said, does anybody down there own a calculator? And I sent it to her. I was just being very respectful because I wanted her to buy the G. I don't want her to overspend. She goes and sends it to everybody in the community. I got 25 phone calls on Thursday from people in Florida going, what am I doing in F? I don't know. You shouldn't be in F, but they are. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's easy to understand, but two, insurance agents are compensated by the insurance companies for what you spend. So if you can be convinced to buy something that's more expensive, the agent makes a higher commission. I apologize, but it's the truth. And sometimes we find ourselves at cross purposes because I've seen an awful lot of agents who will pump the F. Why? Because Mr. and Mrs. Client, you could be financially devastated. You could be in the hospital for 150 days and then in skilled nursing for another 100 days. You could each be out $56,000, Mr. and Mrs. Client. What are you going to do? I'm going to throw that guy out the front door because we don't buy these things out of fear. We buy them out of a rational assessment of what we need. And the idea to understand is this stuff is going to get expensive. We've got 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. We're losing doctors. We're not adding doctors. This is supply. This is demand. This stuff is going to go up. And I would always recommend to people that when you look at this field of play, I would put in a 5 to 8% inflation factor every year on everything. Every number we talk about here tonight, you have to figure is going to go up. Most financial planners, and we work with a lot of financial planners, they're putting in a straight 10% every year. Everything medical goes up 10%. That's kind of a grim assessment, but their job is to make sure you don't run out of money. So they kind of pad it a little bit to the high end. But we'd have to expect, and I've seen it before, people who take this F at 65, and now I'm working with them at 94, and at 94 now they're not paying 165 anymore. He's 360 and she's 340, and it's driving them under on a fixed income. And yet you sit down with them and you explain to them, well, maybe if you accept a deductible, that would lower your premiums substantially. Or maybe take it one step further, reach a little deeper into your pocket. Look at the N as in Nancy. Nancy takes that cost sharing one step further. Nancy says not only will you pay the $185 deductible, but then after that you'll also pay co-payments to see the doctor. Those co-payments are pretty negligible. Up to $20 to see a doctor, up to $20 to see a specialist, and $50 if you go to the emergency room. Now that's interesting phrasing. Why do they say co-payments of up to $20? Because we know by the time Medicare beats the heck out of the doctor says, I'm brilliant, I charge $350. Medicare says, you're adorable, we pay 90. Of the 90, you're responsible for 20% of the 90. Your copayment on that would only be an $18 copayment. We had a guy in the office just the other day, a specialist visit. By the time Medicare beat it up and he was in his 80-20 split, his specialist visit was $15.10. Pretty powerful when Medicare gets a hold of that, takes their discount, and then you're responsible for 20% of that. So we can certainly justify the N. Generally speaking, I'm a big fan of moving farther down this way because I know this stuff is going to get really expensive as we age. N makes sense on that cost share. That female at about 165, we could justify the G at 120. She saves enough to make up the deductible. But then consider the N. Instead of 165, we can bring that N in at around $90 a month. $90 a month. But yeah, but if she's got the F, she doesn't have to pay the deductible. Yeah, but look at the savings, look at the premium savings, look at the big picture, look at the long term. On the N, she's paying 90. On the F, she's paying 165. Well, that means she's saving $75 a month on the N. Times 12, that's $900 a year in savings. Yeah, but that's not fair. She's got to pay the deductible. Okay, so let's take the 185 out of the 900. She's still $700 to the good, but that's not fair. She's got co-payments to see the doctor. Yeah, but even at $20 on a copay, on $700 in savings, she's got to go to the doctor more than 35 times next year for N to have been a bad choice. If you're going to the doctor more than 35 times and you work with Robin, you want to let us know, right? Because we wouldn't put you in the N. But for most people, general rule of thumb, and that's what we're talking about here tonight, general rule of thumb, as long as you're not going to the doctor more than twice a month, N can make a lot of sense. It's a smart place to shelter. Another very, very much a sleeper, but it's going to grow in popularity. Let's think of deductible. F has no deductible. G has a deductible and drives down premiums. N has a deductible and co-payments and drives down premiums even further. You might be willing to accept an out-of-pocket maximum that's even higher. And we offer this F in a high deductible version. High deductible F says that you would agree to $2,300 out-of-pocket max. That's a firewall, that's not a deductible. You pay your first $185 and then you start getting your negotiated discount and then you spend that $80-20. You have that $18 doctor visit. That $185 deductible and the $18 doctor visit go towards that worst case scenario. That's a firewall, and that can be a really smart place for people who are in pretty good health, understand how this system works, and aren't terrified by an out-of-pocket of $2,300. Me, I carry a $7,000 deductible. That means I got to pay $7,000 up front before the insurance company shows up. Here, I'd have to pay $185, then I get the big negotiated discount, and then the 80-20 split. This can be a very interesting place to firewall off your exposure. And it's going to grow in popularity because we've got boatloads of baby boomers that are coming to the shore, and they've been going to bed every night for the last 6-7 years with a $7,000 or an $8,000 or a $9,000 deductible on each of them. What happens if she's willing to reach into her pocket? If she's willing to expose to that possible maximum out of pocket, that's going to drive her premium down from about $165 to about $120 to about $90. We're going to bring this in at about $45 a month. That can be very interesting if you're willing to accept more exposure. But this is why it's totally customizable to what you want it to be. No deductible, 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 and co-payments, maximum out of pocket. How do we drive down the cost of health insurance? By reaching deeper into our pocket and or having more narrow networks. In this world, it's whatever you want it to be. And Medicare is going to protect you. They say that when you first come to Medicare, for those of you who aren't at Medicare world yet, you're going to get your golden ticket. You come off your group health insurance in that world, you're going to come off a group health insurance, and you're going to get 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after you activate B. You can go anywhere you want to go on this field of play, and they got to take you. It's the law, okay? In that 6 months, what we're going to do is we're going to have choices to make and flexibility because we're in what Robin and I call your golden ticket status. You got 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after. Rules of engagement. If you want to play on this field of play, insurance companies, you got to play by our rules. These are the programs that you can offer. And in that window of 6 months before and 6 months after, they have to take you. There's no medical questions, no underwriting. You can be in an iron lung smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day, and they can't deny you. In that world, you've got that guaranteed issue right. And furthermore, once you sign up with one of these companies, they can never drop you. You're theirs and they're yours until the day you die or we find a better alternative elsewhere. In that world, they got to take you, they can never drop you, and more importantly than anything, they can never single you out for a rate increase. And that's a critical component on this field of play. If you did N with AARP, you go into a pool with everyone that's got N from AARP. You have dread disease, first diagnosis, heart attack, fall off a roof, car wreck, snake bite, all in the same year. They can't come to you and single you out for a rate increase because you are a terrible risk. All they can do is share your claims among everyone that's in that risk pool. Everyone that's got N from AARP in the Chicagoland area is participating in your claims. The bigger the pools, the more modest the rate increases because we're sharing claims over a bigger pool of insured. In that world, what makes this work so brilliantly well is we've constantly got new, young, healthy baby boomers jumping into these pools. Young, 65, healthy, love them. Your parents don't even know what kale is, and you eat it, okay? In this world, these young, healthy 65-year-olds, they're healthier than their parents were at 55, and they're jumping into these pools, and they're paying premiums and sharing in claims, and they're not really utilizing a lot of services, and they're helping to keep costs down for the older and the sicker. Bigger companies with bigger pools are typically going to have more modest rate increases through the years. That's why Robin and I typically, when you have your choice of all of these companies, there's really 3 that drive the business in Illinois, and we focus on those big guys. We said 5 to 8, 5 to 8, 5 to 8 every year in rate increases. The big guys typically are more in like the 2 to 3% range because they're so big and they're constantly bringing in new young, healthy people, okay? You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. Is it just K and L have a limit? What's the limit on any of them?
On K and L, your out-of-pocket maximum on K is $55.60. Your out-of-pocket maximum on the L is $27.80. I would put forth to you, if you looked at the numbers, that high deductible F would be a better alternative.
Do these others, for example, does N have a limit?
No, you pay the $185 annual deductible, and then it's an unlimited benefit, but you do have co-payments for those doctor visits. It's all what you want as far as exposure goes, please.
What is the Part B excess charges?
Part B excess charges, what is this? Okay, Medicare has to make allowances for every possibility. We don't just change this every year. This doesn't change every year. This stays pretty stable. So in a world where they're screaming at you that you got to do something, no, your supplements just roll over every year automatically. But Medicare has to make allowances for every possibility. So we've got the highfalutin specialist that says, I graduated at the top of my class. I get $350 for an office visit. Medicare says, no, we pay $90. Well, that doctor also has the ability, Medicare says, calm down, I know you feel like you're worth more. We'll allow you to charge the consumer more than our approved reimbursement rate. But the rules of engagement, it can't be more than 15% after Medicare's taken their negotiated discount. So on that $90 visit, he could bump that 15%. That's $13 and change. Here's the forms and wait 6 months, okay? We have no reports of excess charges here in Illinois that I've run into, and you would see that your new best friend in the world is Medicare. They allow 10 packages of benefits to come to market. 8 of them don't even deal with excess charges. That would be a pretty good indicator that that's not a big problem. The other thing that you'd want to do is to protect yourself at all times. This is my insurance. Do you accept Medicare assignment? If they accept assignment, that's terminology, means they agree to accept Medicare as payment in full. You'd always want to protect yourself on that. But you could also go to Medicare.gov. At Medicare.gov, you can punch in your doctor's name and they'll tell you right there, accepts Medicare as payment in full. So it's not an issue, but it's something that we want to be aware of, okay? Fabulous field of play, chocked full of competition, and what you want to know is you get 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after you activate B. They've got to play by all these rules, but then Medicare steps back after 6 months and says, okay, have at it, boys. Price your product however you want to price your product. Qualify people however you choose to qualify people. It's your job to remain profitable and stay in business. And what you'd find is people make a mistake here because a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and I've seen it time and again. I know N is the same thing no matter who I get it from, and it's the same provider network, so it's pretty simple. I'm going to go on the internet. What's your price? What's your price? What's your price? What's your price? Oh, there it is, the cheapest price on N. I'm going to go with them because I'm going to ride them. It's the same thing as all these other companies. And then, you know, if I don't like it every year during the open enrollment period, I can change my supplement, right? Wrong. You got your golden ticket. You got 6 months before you activated B, 6 months after you activated B. They had to take you. But now they don't have to take you. Now you're past your initial enrollment period, this 6 months on either side of these supplements, and now what you'll find is you want to go to that other company that was more stable. And look at that, after 3 years, their prices are now lower than that little company you went with because that little company had a really small risk pool. And 2 people got cancer and a woman had a heart attack, and they shared that over a small group. Those smaller companies are going up 14, 16, 18% a year. I don't like making those phone calls. You don't like getting those letters. But the smaller companies do us a favor. They come onto this field of play, and the only way they can get any traction is they lowball the market. They come in with really sharp prices. That forces the big guys to stay down and in competition because capitalism works. But the bigger companies with the bigger risk pool over the course of time have proven to be much more steady. In a world where now you want to get from that little small company to one of the bigger companies, you'll find that 38 out of 39 of the companies that currently offer supplements, they're going to ask you medical questions. They got 16 of them. Do you have any of these? Because if you've got any of these, thank you so much, but no thank you, and they can do that. Please.
Who are the big 3?
Good question. I would say that the big 3 in Illinois, both on volume, track record, and history, would be in no particular order. I'd bank on my Blue Cross, my AARP, which is United Healthcare, and Mutual of Omaha. That was a direct question, ladies and gentlemen. I have to offer direct answers. I'm not here pitching for any of those companies. We represent all of them. The difference there is in a world of competition, I want to show you 39 companies. I want to show you the track record, which I can show you of their rate increases. I want to show you their financial wherewithal. I'm not willing to hitch my wagon to a B- company and believe that they're going to be there in 30 years paying claims. The big boys have stood the test. Other companies are challenging them, no question. If you've got diabetes and you smoke, I got a better company. If you've had a heart attack in the last 2 years and you just had first diagnosis of some other, there's another company. But in that world, we have a tool chest of all these companies, and we want to look at them, okay? Good here. Questions, please. Please.
I have to sign up for Part B beginning. I'm in a special enrollment because my wife is retiring. I'm losing Blue Cross Blue Shield. So
On a group chassis.
So I've got 6 weeks, or not, I'm in a period right now where she's going to retire beginning of January.
Okay.
So I've got to right now sign up for Part B from my understanding. I have Part A already.
Correct. Because you've had creditable coverage, you've reserved your part to come here.
Right.
There's 2 forms you need to file. One form says, I'm ready now, I want to start my Part B, and in the remarks section, make sure you put January 1st of 2020. And then the other form that her employer would fill out saying, yep, he's been covered. It's an attestation that you've had creditable coverage, and therefore you're allowed to go activate your Medicare Part B, no questions asked.
Okay, how about the supplement? How soon do I have to do I have time to look into all this and do the supplement?
Do you want the sales pitch or do you want the truth? Because the sales pitch is, oh my God, you got to do something now. The truth is you'd have right up till December 31st at midnight, as long as we file an application, because remember here, you've got, in essence, your golden ticket. 6 months before you activate B, well, that's pretty much already gone. And 6 months after you activate B, all of these are on the table for you. Any of them.
But I thought you said end of December. I'm going to activate B January 1st.
Correct.
6 months after that?
You do.
So I don't have to do by end of December.
You don't have to, but if that's your wife sitting next to you, she's going to elbow you. because nobody wants to go without coverage. What you would want is, I would say, you'd want her coverage to end and your coverage to begin. And her coverage is going to end December 31st at midnight, and then Medicare is going to start. Only foolish people do this, and only foolisher people do this. You don't want a double coverage, you want a single coverage.
Okay, I called today, and they told me, I called a number, a Medicare, and they told me I have to do it by the open enrollment, December 7th.
That's a lie. That's not true. And again, think of an industry, and I've got to apologize for my colleagues, and I'll apologize for myself. We're getting so many calls at this period of time because think of a business model where the federal government forces us to try to touch at least 75% of everyone we've ever enrolled in a 7-week period. It cannot be done. You've got January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December drops right off. So you may be talking to a rookie. You may be talking to somebody who hasn't been there, but you're coming off of group coverage. You have a special election period. That trumps, I'm sorry, did I say that word? That supersedes your ability, because with your special election, you've got that bigger window to go do whatever you want to do. Okay? Please.
That somewhat has confused me because I'm in a similar thing where I retired November 1st and my medical's paid until December 1st.
Okay.
And they told me when I was at Social Security, they told me that I had to have everything set up by December 1st to cover my insurance.
If your coverage ends at the end of November, you'd want your Part B and your supplement, your drug program, everything to start December 1st.
Okay.
Different timing based upon coming off of group. Different timing than this screaming at you about the open enrollment period. I get phone calls. I got 3 of them today. What do I do? What do I do? Well, the first thing you do is calm down and tell me, how old are you? I'm 63. You haven't even come to Medicare yet. And people are still listening to the ads. It's insanity. So you'll be fine.
My second question is that I had called the ARP, healthcare, and because, you know, I'm from California, and so I've been moved around the country since September 11th, and so I'll be going back and forth to California a lot. And they go, well, we don't cover anything in California.
See, again, that's a partial sentence, a half-truth, and an asterisk all in one. That means, by definition, if they tell you, oh, we don't cover you in California, that means that you're looking at the Advantage programs. You're not looking at the supplements. If you're looking at the supplements, if you're looking at these things, any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare, you're in, because Medicare is the mothership. All these guys are doing is picking up the schnitzels of what Medicare doesn't cover. This is your backup plan. But the more you travel, I can prove to you, the more effective a supplement will be, because you've got this huge, if you're in North Dakota and you got a runny nose, go see a doctor as long as they take Medicare. If you've got an Advantage program, no, you've agreed to stay within a much tighter network. But that's how they get to 0, 0, 0, right? A couple more and then we're going to move on, please.
I currently have mutual enrollment plan G. Can I switch within them to like the F?
She has G with a company right now, but she's outside of the first 6 months that she came to Medicare. And you have every right to go and to apply for any of these companies, and they will ask you medical questions. If you can get
even mutual,
even within the same company. We have one company in Illinois, and there's not many things that I would say under the banner of great things about living in Illinois, but there's one company that does not ask medical questions on this field of play, and that gives me the confidence. I know I could move you without medical questions. Okay? Please.
Yeah, Part B co-payment, is it depending on your preventive services?
You got to speak up because I can't hear you, and I know, but nobody else can. Please. Again?
On the Part B co-payment,
Part B copayment.
is it depending on your services, is it preventive or diagnostic?
Well, yeah, because Medicare does not cover you preventive care. Preventive care is very expensive. So Medicare gives you a welcome to Medicare physical. Within 12 months of activating Part B, you get a full physical, because there's a lot of people who wait to get anything done in the world of Medicare because they're coming. And they might have built up a big world of hurt. So Medicare will give you a welcome to Medicare physical one time, soup to nuts, within the first year of you activating B. After that, they'll give you an annual wellness consult. That annual wellness consult is just a verbal discussion with your doctor. If he deems it appropriate that you do need an MRI or a CAT scan or a blood panel, that would be coded as diagnostic and Medicare would pay for it. But it happens not infrequently that the doctor's office codes something incorrectly in the world of Medicare. If it's diagnostic, it's covered. If it's preventative or wellness, it would not be covered. And we'd have to resubmit that bill. Okay? Please.
I retired. I'm not 65 yet, but when I retired, I worked for the post office.
Okay? So you have the ability to get federal employee coverage.
Right.
We're going to take that offline because that's a different world altogether. It's brilliant coverage, but this will confuse you in that world. Question?
What about VA coverage?
Well, VA coverage, thank you for your service first and foremost. VA coverage is interesting. You would have opportunities there for additional coverage. I don't think that you would need a Medicare supplement, but Robin, you want to talk to that for a second? He's asking about VA coverage.
Yeah, the important thing to know is that Medicare and the VA don't really coordinate. They don't talk to each other. They kind of run separate and can run parallel. Depending on what level of coverage you have, if you have VA benefits at a certain level, or if you're, on TRICARE for Life or CHAMP VA, that can really determine if any of this is something that you need.
VA benefits are wonderful as long as you use the VA, but I'll make a plea for you a little bit later on. I believe I could explain to you why Advantage would be an excellent place for you to add on to those VA benefits, but we'll get there in a second, okay? One more, please.
If you go to an Advantage plan, you have the opportunity to go back to regular Medicare.
Got that, everybody? If you go Advantage, can you get back here? Yeah, you can, but once you go to Advantage, there's no questions to get into Advantage. They'll take everybody. But when you want to come back over, if you want to come back over and get yourself a supplement, they can ask you medical questions. And 38 out of 39 companies are going to say, you want to come back over? No problem, but just tell us what's going on. And if you answer yes to any of those questions, they have the ability to say thank you so much, but no thank you. We have one company in Illinois that does not ask medical questions, and that gives me the confidence in the world of Advantage to know that I've always got an out. I've always got a bailout. One more and then we're moving on, please.
What is that company?
Sure, go ahead. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross Blue Shield. Love them. They're great. I'm not shilling for them, do a lot of business with them, but I do a lot of business with a lot of companies. The thing that you want to understand, though, is think for just a brief moment. Wait a second. A health insurance company that doesn't ask any health questions? Isn't that kind of crazy? Well, their business model, they figure they're going to get so many people, and they're the largest in Illinois. They get so many people in Illinois, and they got so many young baby boomers jumping in that they can withstand that, and they're willing to accept the extra risk of somebody joining their pool that might not be healthy. But I can also show you their rates are not the cheapest, and people make a mistake sometimes by passing on them because usually their rate increases are very, very reasonable. But everybody has a reason to exist. You just want to be able to see all of them. That's the key. All right? So here we've got Medicare falls short. Don't buy these things out of fear. Please, we need a rational assessment of what your needs are. A and B, good, but A and B don't cover everything. So we're going to look to pick up a Medicare supplement. These are done individually. Mom and dad have different needs. Mom and dad may take different products. Dad may love the high deductible F. Mom may be more comfortable with the G. But in that world, we can do that customizably, but they're still going to need a drug program. And that drug program, again, fierce competition. This next year, we've got 28 different drug programs that want your business. You got 28 drug programs, and they're all working off of the same formulary, the same menu of drugs that Medicare allows to come to market. So of the 28, they've got to decide where they want to compete. What do they want to be? Some have gone after generics, and some have gone after mail order, and some are good for brands, and some are good for a mixture. But this next year, we open up for the lowest ever. Our least expensive drug program this next year is $13.20 a month. The most expensive drug program is $135.50 a month. You might well imagine that the $13 drug program is really good for generics and has a deductible. The really expensive drug program is really good for expensive drugs and has no deductible, but you better be needing some god-awful stuff to have that represent value, but it's there if we need it. The beauty of it is they all have to play by Medicare rules, and they're all forced onto a level field of play. All of them will have a late enrollment penalty. What that means is when you first come to Medicare, you don't have to take a drug program if you don't want to take a drug program. But if you don't take a drug program, realize that they have not forgotten about you. They are going to continue to wait for you to show up, but every month that you don't have creditable coverage through your employer or a drug program or VA benefits, there's going to be a penalty that's going to keep accruing. The penalty is negligible. This year it's like 36 cents a month. It's not a big deal, but those months add up over time. And I've seen people time and again, they think they're going to beat the system, and generally speaking, when you think you're going to beat the system, you find out the system's waiting for you about 5 miles down the road, smiling, saying, hey, remember the penalty? And what will happen is people will say, I'm not going to get a drug program. I don't take any expensive drugs. I may not take any drugs at all. And any drugs that I was ever going to take are going to be generic, right? Everything's generic. So they'll pass on the drug program. And a year will go by, and they'll roll the dice again. And a year will go by, and they'll roll the dice again. But eventually the doctor shows up and says, hey, you should start taking this stuff. It's called Eliquis. It's a wonderful blood thinner. And you go to buy your Eliquis, and you find out it's $500 a month. And you say to yourself, I better go get a drug program. And we can go get you a drug program right now during this annual election period. Guaranteed, can't be denied. We don't care that you didn't have coverage, and there's no medical questions. It's terrific. But oh, by the way, all those 36 cents from all those months that you never had coverage, we're going to add them all together, and it's not a one-time penalty. It's for the rest of your life in perpetuity. It goes on to your premium every month for the rest of your life. Question?
Yes, if you've had a certain program for the last couple of years and you want the same one, do you have to do anything?
No, you don't. It'll roll over, okay? But I'll tell you here tonight, let's see how I can pose this question, Robin, that's diplomatic. One of the companies has gotten very aggressive, and that company has brought out new programs. And as a result of bringing out the new programs, Medicare says, that's fine, you can do that, but you can only offer 3 programs. So they want to bring out 2 new, very aggressively priced programs, which they've done. But Medicare says that's okay, but everybody that you had enrolled in those 2 programs that you're discontinuing, you still have to cover them and you still have to protect them. And you better make really sure that no drugs slip through the cracks that you didn't know about. So everybody that was in their old 2 programs have all been moved into the new top shelf program. Watch your mail. There's a program out there that it's jumped up on you. It's more than doubled. And it's not that your program has doubled in price. It's that they had to move you into this more comprehensive program to be able to release 2 new competitively priced programs.
Now, if you start the drug thing with a low premium one and then up it later, do you still get?
You bet you can. No penalty, no, because you've had creditable coverage. And that's why you want to keep it on a short leash. I have a lot of people that start and they're only taking generics, but then something comes down the road. The beauty of this is every year you get a do-over during this annual election period. And you have the ability to change that drug program and possibly save a small fortune in the back.
Are you saying that if you're not, that you have to get on the drug program, even if you're not taking any drugs right now?
Yep. Yep. Got to take a drug program. You don't have to. I'm sorry, I take that back. You don't have to take a drug program, but the penalty is going to continue to accrue, and one day if you decide you want a drug program, that penalty will be put on your premium every month for the rest of your life. And you say, well, why would I get a drug program if I'm not taking any drugs? We really want you in the drug program because you're paying premiums for something you're not even using. You're keeping the costs down for everybody else. We need everybody in the pool. We need everybody participating together. Please.
For T, is it the same situation I asked about for Cedars, 6 months if you start Part B or?
Different timing, same concept, but a tighter window. On the supplements, you get 6 months from your Part B activation date. On the drug program, you get 63 days from the end of her group coverage. So you've got a tighter window. So the bottom line is, we'd like to sit down with you sooner rather than later and map out a strategy for the future, okay? In this world, all of the drug programs are going to be choosing from the formulary, the master formulary that Medicare is allowed to come to market. They're not able to make up stuff. It's got to be what Medicare approves. We're not talking about dietary aids. We're not talking about vitamins. We're not talking about Rogaine or Viagra. We're talking about serious meds for serious situations. And all of these companies get to choose how they want to present their meds. But they're all going to be on a 5-tier basis. Your employer plan typically had 3 tiers of coverage. They had generic, they had brands, and they had specialty. Medicare forces them onto a 5-tier format. Why do they do that? Because it facilitates specialization, and it facilitates competition, and it drives costs down. Your company may have one drug that you want as a tier 3. Another company may have it as a tier 2. Another company may not cover it at all. But understand what's going on here. Tier 1 are the super cheap generics. You may be paying 0 for your metformin, but metformin has a value. They don't care what you're paying. They're tracking the value of your drug. Tier 2 drugs, these are newer generics. Recently, Crestor just went generic. Anybody take rosuvastatin calcium? It's a godsend. It came way down in price, but it's a newer generic, so it's going to have a higher copayment and a higher value. They're not tracking your copayment, they're tracking the value of the drug you're acquiring. Tier 3, these would be drugs typically advertised on TV. Lipitor, Nexium, Lunesta, Spiriva. If it's advertised on TV, it's going to be a more expensive drug because it's a brand name drug and you'll have a higher copayment. Tier 3 drugs are drugs that are advertised on TV. Tier 4, these are drugs that are advertised on TV by famous people, okay? So when Phil Mickelson is out there hawking his Enbrel, that is a bloody expensive drug, but he's getting his dollars and they're happy. But again, they aren't tracking the $85 you're paying for this top-tier brand name drug. They're tracking the value, which can be hundreds of dollars. And then we get to Tier 5, and these are the ones you don't even want to consider. These are anti-rejection drugs for transplants, AIDS medications, chemotherapy that you might take in the privacy of your own home. What was that again? Chemotherapy that you might take in the privacy of your own home. You're going to march down to Walgreens and you're going to pick up this Tier 5 drug and you're going to go sit in your Barcalounger and watch The Price is Right. And that's a beautiful thing. But it's a very expensive drug. And they aren't tracking the $150 you're paying for it. They're tracking the $1,800 that that drug is worth. It's the value of your drugs that are being tracked, and it's the value of your drugs that drive you towards this thing called the coverage gap. And all of the programs have 3 stages of coverage, and they all have a coverage gap. Whether you get it on an Advantage chassis and it's built into the program, or you buy it on a standalone basis and you've got your choice of 28 different versions. How do we move to the coverage gap? Most of these programs will have a deductible, not all of them. The higher premium plans don't have a deductible, the lower premium plans do. But you'd knock out your first Eliquis, it's a $500 drug. You're going to knock out your deductible this year is $435 on most of these programs. So your first Eliquis is going to run you $435 on most of them. And then you'd fall into this first stage of coverage called the initial stage of coverage. And life is good. You're paying a monthly premium, but now that you've paid off your deductible, you're getting your Eliquis for like $50. That's a sweet deal. Eliquis is a $500 drug. Well, that's why you got a drug program, to pay $50 for Eliquis. But your $50 doesn't interest them. I mean, it interests them, but they're tracking the value of the drug, $500 worth of drug. Well, in this world, if you go past this threshold this year of $3,820 worth of drugs, that's what's going to dump you into this thing called the coverage gap or the donut hole. Well, your Eliquis is worth $500. In 8 months, you will have received enough meds. In 8 months, you've only paid $400, but you've accrued enough value to where you've tripped out of the initial stage into the gap. You fall into the gap, things get more expensive. In the gap now, you're expected to step up. You're expected to pay more, and in that world, you'd pay 25% of the brand name value. Now that goes up. All of a sudden, you're not paying $50 for your Eliquis anymore. Now you're paying 25% of the $500 retail value of the drug. And it can get to be spendy. That's why people want to avoid the coverage gap if at all possible. Question?
I was told by my pharmacist that once you go on Medicare, the certificate, the coupons that the drug companies give you to reduce these costs do not apply to Medicare.
That is correct. That is correct. If you read, well, okay, you want the truth or you want the sales pitch? The truth is the pharmaceutical companies know that all roads lead to Medicare. So they'll give you these discount coupons and you'll love them for it. The Eliquis, under 65, I got a coupon, baby. I paid $5. This is sweet. Read the back of the coupon. Does not play well with Medicare or any government program. So what they've done, now I don't have personal experience, but I've been told your first shot of heroin is free. Why is that? Because it's really good for business. You get yourself a whole bunch of addicts and it was a minimal investment on your part and you're reaping the rewards until they kick. But in that world, all roads lead to Medicare, and it is frustrating to me because people will get on these meds, and I know the doctor's sales pitch is going to tell you, well, we're going to put you on Eliquis, and we're going to try that for 6 weeks and see how it goes. And, you know, maybe we'll take you off it. Brr. In that world, what happens is you get on that drug, and very rarely is any doctor willing to step up and say, you know what, I think we should take you off that drug. Because if you don't make it, the first phone call he gets is from your family attorney saying, how in the world could you take this guy off of a med that was performing? So yeah, you got to be careful. Those discount coupons and stuff typically don't work in this world. But you'll see a lot of competition, and that's what this is all about. 5 tiers, right? 28 different companies, 28 different premiums, and all of them are there for you for your advantage. Please, quick question.
The donut hole, so the 3820.
Oh, there's one in every crowd. Don't do it.
That's the value of the drugs.
Correct.
5,100 is literally out of your pocket.
No, it's not. It's not. It's an algebraic equation, and we got to go down the rabbit hole. I know this gets convoluted, but try to bear with me. How do we get, there's a magic number. The magic number this year is 5,100. If we get to 5,100, we get sprung. We get out of the coverage gap and we get into catastrophic. That's the 3rd stage of coverage. You could consider that a silver lining to a very dark cloud or a pot of gold at the end of a particularly crappy rainbow. But there's rate relief out there. You'd pay 5% of your drugs once you got there, 5% of the retail. It's a beautiful thing. So how do we get to 5,100? The combination of 2 numbers. What you've spent here, so you're paying $50 a month for your Xarelto. And then you fall into this coverage stage here, this donut hole. In that part, they give you credit for the full retail value of the drug on the brand name. So bear with me. We've got, all we're taking is Xarelto. All we're taking is Eliquis. 1 med a month. And it's worth $500, but you pay $50 for it. So in that world, in 8 months, we're going to blow by this, right? Because we've accrued $4,000 worth of drugs. How did we do that? 8 times 50, you're in for $400. $400 threw you in jail. Now we got to get to 5,100. Take 400 that you've spent off the 5,100. Now we've got to get to 4,700. How do we do that? We're paying $125 a month for the Xarelto, but we're getting credited $500 towards that 5,100. Only in the world of the government is your true out-of-pocket cost not your true out-of-pocket cost, okay? It's a wacky formula, but what it means for us as consumers is you get through the coverage gap faster than you ever did before. When we were working 5 years ago, you would have seen that your cost share was 50%. That Eliquis was $250 a throw if you fell into the coverage gap, but it's come down. 45, 40, 35, 30. Now we're at 25, and it's going to stay at 25. People say, well, I heard the coverage gap was going away. It's still there, but it's come down to such a low level. The other good news is next year, that 37% cost share on your generics, why more on generics? Because they're so cheap. That's going to come down to 25%. It's gotten increasingly better each year. And every year we see competition. I say Eliquis is a $500 drug. 5 years ago it was. Now the retail on Eliquis, what, Robin, about $428? Coming down, coming down, coming down. My understanding is I'm told Eliquis and Xarelto, we're hoping go generic next year. That would be a godsend. Be phenomenal, okay? But in this world, it's pretty simple. You got 28 different drug programs, you got 28 different formularies, you got 28 different premiums. So all you need to do is call 28 companies during open enrollment and ask them, nope, we're going to go to Medicare.gov and we're going to use this tab and we're going to plug your medications in and we can show you every drug program. 1-800-MEDICARE. Medicare.gov. We can show you every drug program. And it's critically important that you look at this on a regular basis. We talked about that one company that's moving everybody to a different platform. You've got to read that mail. Anything that's coming from your insurance company, read it. The other stuff, I know it's tough to sort through because there's a lot of it. Please.
What is that one company?
Direct question, direct answer. Humana has gotten very aggressive. And the good news is they've got 2 programs that are wonderful. The bad news is everybody that had Humana in their less expensive programs, this is a protection by Medicare. This is not trying to mess with the consumer, but what they've done to protect you as a consumer, they had to move everybody to their most expensive program just to make sure that every possible drug was covered. This was a protection from Medicare, but the problem is if you're asleep at the switch, that most of the people who were in their $23 drug program are going to wake up in January and find out it went to $52. How did that happen? You didn't read your mail, you didn't stay engaged, and you didn't look at this. And it's tough, man. It's a 7-week period. How do you do this? Well, I'm sorry, except for Halloween, it's a 7-week, well, and except for Thanksgiving, it's a 7-week period, and except for shopping for the grandkids, it's a 7-week period. Pay attention. Got to look, got to know, got to go here, and I would suggest all of you give a call to 1-800-MEDICARE. Make sure that what you're doing is what you need to be doing for the next year, okay? So here we go, and we've got Medicare A and B that don't cover everything, so we've picked up a supplement. It wouldn't be unusual that mom and dad would have different supplements because they have different needs. We'd probably want to keep all that with the same company because that one company would give us a household discount if husband and wife sign up together. Very rare that mom and dad would have the same drug program because mom and dad are taking different drugs. And I see this all the time. People will do a review and will find that everything was done with the same company. That means by definition you probably worked with a captive agent that only represents one company. And in that world, you've eliminated competition from the equation. You're not going to look at 28 drug programs. You're only going to look at the 3 that that one company offers. And they may have put you in the least expensive program from that company, but that least expensive program is $46. You don't need a $46 drug program. The $15 program is probably better for you, but you wouldn't even have known because you worked with somebody that was only showing you one thing. In this world, we want to find the best for mom and the best for dad. And this could be from 2 totally different separate companies than what you did here. We're going to mix and match. And you talk to somebody who did everything with the same company, and you say, I know the answer. Why would you do everything with the same company? Well, the agent said it would be easier that way. And it was definitely easier for the agent, but it was not your best outcome. You want to slice and dice this. You want to look at it every which way you can to find the best possible value for your situation. Most people are going to start here, and it's a beautiful place. Any doctor, any hospital, we can even wipe out all of your exposure. And most people will start here because this is what mom did, that's what dad did, and that's what your friends do. So there's safety in numbers, and we're going to go this route. But this time of year especially, people start to double clutch and to wonder, is there a better value out there for me? And dad sits down with the explanation of benefits in his calculator and a pencil and a pad, and he says, you know, babe, when we signed up 7 years ago, this stuff was pretty reasonable, but now here we are at 72, and between your supplement and your drug program, we're dropping $250 a month. And between my supplement and my drug program, we're dropping another $250 a month. Between the 2 of us, that's $500 a month. That's $6 grand a year. And as far as I can tell from these explanation of benefits, you went to the doctor 3 times and I went twice, and we dropped $6 grand on 5 doctor visits. Are we really getting value? And that's where we might get a shot at them. You know, you probably didn't need the F. The G would have been a better value. You don't go to the doctor that much. N could make a lot of sense if you're not going to the doctor all that much. And you might even, now that you've seen Medicare in action, now that you've seen these explanations of benefits, now you've seen what they're doing, you might even consider that high deductible as an alternative. That could be a good one. Or now, you might actually consider a different concept completely, this thing called Advantage. Advantage is a different idea. We said that the federal government is not running Medicare for the $135.50 that you're mailing them every month. It can't be done. They're dropping north of $800 a month on each of us. In the world of Advantage, they contract with private insurance companies, and private insurance companies agree to step in for that $800 a month and run the whole show. So what happens is, if you do this, you would put that card away. You've still got to pay your Part B premium. I know somebody's going to ask it again. You never get away from that, remember, because we've got to have A and B to do anything else. But in this world, you're going to put that card away because now instead of any doctor, any hospital, you've agreed to network restrictions. We're going to drive down costs because now we don't see any doctor, any hospital. Now we're keeping it within a group of doctors. A company of doctors. Could be Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna, Humana, AARP. Many companies are fighting here because it's such a profitable business. That's why they're all over the TV screens. On this side of the equation, you have unlimited exposure. That's why we picked these up. On this side of the equation, the private insurance company steps in and runs the whole deal. Here we've got three parts to our equation. Medicare's primary, a supplement, and a drug program. Here we lock it all into one chassis. Limited network of doctors and hospitals and an a la carte menu. Everything we do on this side of the equation has a copayment. Go to the primary, it's 5 or 10. He sends you to the specialist, it's 25 or 30. Go to the emergency room, it's 90 or 100. Take the ambulance, it's 200. Spend a night in the hospital, it's $200 or $300 a night. But with that a la carte menu of expenses, you could potentially drive your premiums down, way down, possibly all the way down to zero. All of these Advantage programs are built the same way. They all have to show you their benefits. They have to lay them out side by side. Why? Because the new sheriff in town is Medicare, and they tell them how to show these products. All of these Advantage programs are available to you right now because we're in the annual election period. We could move very easily from this side of the equation to this side of the equation. That could start January 1st, or when you first come to Medicare. In this world, note that Medicare protects you. If for any time in the first year you don't like this product, we can move you right back to where you came from. Guaranteed, can't be denied. But after that first year, we can still move back to this side of the equation, but these guys now can ask you medical questions. Except for, wasn't there one company that doesn't ask medical questions? Gives me the faith to know that we could maybe try one of these things. I've got a one-year trial right, and then I've got a bailout with a supplemental company that doesn't ask questions. All of these programs are going to have restrictive networks. It's not going to be any doctor, any hospital. They can come in an HMO chassis. That's where you've agreed to keep everything within a single silo of doctors. Anybody heard of DuPage Medical Group? Anybody know about Amita or Northwestern? Anybody know about Edward Elmhurst? These are groups of doctors. The small independent doctor has basically been run over. They have to circle their wagons and get into these medical groups because of overhead and expenses and administrative and all the lawsuits that they face. And frankly, most doctors are terrible business people. I'm sorry, are there any doctors in the audience this evening? Most doctors are not adroit at the world of business. That's because their mind operates on a totally different plateau. They fix people. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. But if you're willing to live within an HMO chassis, DuPage Med is only, that primary is only going to refer you to DuPage Gastro, DuPage Derm, DuPage Endo. If you could keep within that tight network and agree to co-payments, that's how they're getting these things to a zero premium plan. The companies are making a small fortune because they're getting paid by the government, and they know that at any given point in time, only 12% of the population is ever getting anything medically done. The other 88% of us, we're just living our lives, doing our thing. And meanwhile, the truck keeps backing up each month with that money. That's why it's big money. That's why they're on TV. That's why Joe Namath will come visit you personally in your house. And if that isn't the most cornball commercial I've ever seen, and at the end, it's almost tragic when he says, "I guarantee it." I don't think Joe Namath has a Medicare Advantage program. I'm just going out on a limb. All of them are going to have co-payments for services, but those co-payments will vary by company, but all of them will have capped exposure, and that's critically important. We talked about A and B, really good, but not complete, unlimited benefit, but unlimited exposure. Here, we at least put in a firewall, worst case scenario. The one that I like this year a lot has a maximum out of pocket of $2,750 per person. That's not a deductible. That's a compilation of everything that you spend would be firewalled off at $2,750. Well, here's a couple that's guaranteed next year they're going to pay $6,000. If it all goes wrong, good, they paid $6,000. But if it all goes right, they still paid $6,000. And they went to the doctor 5 times last year. On this side of the equation, maybe he had a couple of doctor visits. He had that upper respiratory thing. Cut his finger carving the turkey. He'll never live that down. But he's all in for maybe $300, $400, not the $3,000 that he's going to spend on this side of the equation. All of them will include a Part D drug prescription program built right into the chassis. And there's sweet spots here. If you know where to look, some of these Advantage programs have certain drugs that they treat very favorably, and that's why you'd want to look at the entire field of play. And all of them are available to us during the annual election period. That means that you could, if you decided to, come over here and try this. Try it for a year. If you don't like it, anytime in that first year, you can come right back over here. But what that couple did, they did the cookie jar. They put $6,000 into the cookie jar. And they came over here, and between the two of them, they didn't drop $500. The rest of it was theirs to keep. In this world, you're giving to get. You're giving up selection, and you're agreeing to co-payments in return for which you get lower premiums. Well, they didn't say that on the TV ad. No, they didn't, because they're trying to hook you. They're trying to get you to call. I would suggest that there would be better places to call. And when they say operators are standing by, those aren't operators. Those are sales sharks. And if you could read the little boilerplate under the phone number, you know that when you call them, you've given them your number, and they'll call you back incessantly. Be careful. But the beauty of this is we can see all of these programs at Medicare.gov. And they're all forced to show you their benefits exactly the same way, because Medicare forces them to do that. If we're looking at these and we're being discerning about it, we want to know a couple of things. Number one, how's your health? If your health is really dodgy, you probably don't want to be in a restrictive network with co-payments. But if your health is pretty good, that's a green light. Next question, is your doctor in that network, or would you be flexible? In that world, we could usually find your doctor in one of these networks. And the next question has to be, how often do you go to the doctor? What's your feeling about health care? What's your level of risk tolerance? In this world, I've noticed very, very distinctive differences between women and men. Women want to be able to see their doctor when they want to see their doctor without a referral, without any strings attached. I'm pretty convinced that the additional chromosome that women have, if you could look at that under a microscope, you'd see that chromosome says, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if. They like this side of the equation because they've got total flexibility. They can go wherever they want to go. Men seem to operate on the Jiffy Lube philosophy of healthcare. Don't really care where they go as long as they're in and out in 20 minutes and they got a coupon. But it's not unusual that the husband will try this. I mean, come on, I got a 1-year trial. Let's see how it works. And had one just this week that his wife was over here. He's been here now for 2 years, and she's like, let me in. This is really good stuff. So all of these things are available to you. All of them have their pluses and their minuses. All of them have their good and their bad. This is big business because they're getting big money. That's how they can add things like vision and dental and hearing. But in that world, be careful. The commercials that are screaming at you, it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread, and all that glitters is not gold. Be careful. On some of them, the hearing benefit is you get a big horn that you hold up to your ear, okay? That's not really a hearing benefit, but these additional benefits that they're putting in there, sweeteners, a gym club membership called Silver Sneakers, right? A debit card that allows you to buy as much aspirin as you could possibly buy. These things get added into these chassis as sweeteners. And we've got tremendous competition. It is terrific to see. In Cook County last year, we had 26 of these to choose from. This year, we've got 41. Big business. But I'd go back to the same thing I said about supplements. I'm suspicious of any company that's brand new here. Medicare will protect you, and Medicare gives these guys a star rating, 1 to 5 stars. I'm good with anything over 3. But I certainly would not go with any company when you look for the star rating and it says plan too new to be measured. Hang on, just wait. You can have your maiden voyage. I'll talk to you next year. But we've got 2, 3 companies at this point at 4.5 stars that could definitely be worth looking at. Please.
So when you say you get a 1-year trials, I mean you get to go back without any penalties?
Correct. Anytime in the first year, as of the first of the month. Now, we talked briefly about a vet who's got VA benefits. Pretty darn good benefits from what I'm told. But in that world, it might be silliness for you, for you to pay for this stuff when you've got VA benefits, but you could be on this side of the equation and you could add a whole separate set of benefits running parallel with your VA benefits on a 0 premium chassis, and you get some dental and some vision and some hearing and a gym club membership, but most importantly, what you get over here is a firewall on your emergency room. Because if you go to the emergency room with VA benefits, you can be stuck between the hospital and the VA and who's paying for this, and meanwhile you're getting the bills. Here, any hospital in an emergency is treated as if it's an in-network event. You'd have like a $90 copay. Let them sort it out. I'm fine with that. These are only available on a region-by-region basis, but what we have here in Cook, Kane, Will, and DuPage is a war is raging for your business here, and it's a beautiful thing. The competition is phenomenal. Questions on Advantage programs, please.
If you do a lot of traveling, since you're limited to certain groups, would that not be a great idea?
I would say if you're going to go see the USA in your Chevrolet, this is where you want to be. Because I want to know in South Dakota or in Florida, I get a runny nose, I can go see anybody. Now, in an emergency, these are okay. And these have gotten increasingly more consumer friendly. Used to be, if you were a snowbird, you were out of luck. I mean, that's just not going to work because you're going to Florida for 3 months. But now, several of the programs would allow you to transfer those benefits right down into Florida, and you can keep them there for 3 months. For a stretch of time, it's good. But for a shorter period of time, it's not as user-friendly. But now it's become so ripe with competition. The HMOs were typically where you'd find your 0 premium because they could keep you controlled in a single medical group. But now there's 3 PPOs, 0 premium PPOs. Wait a second, I don't need a referral and I've got a much bigger selection of doctors? Yeah, you do. But think about that for a second. If here your out-of-pocket was $27.50 because they controlled you, but now you can go anywhere, what do you think happens to that out-of-pocket? It goes up. Your co-payments go up. If they're going to keep it at 0, they got to make it up someplace. The benefits might not be so rich. But I've got a gentleman who's very happy with one of these PPOs because he travels, but he has to stay within that medical group anywhere in the 50 United States. Big company, please.
Yeah, the question is, on the Advantage, do you have, I think I asked you out of the just explain to everybody, you need a referral from the doctor.
If you're...
Do you show up at the doctor's office, can you call in?
No, because they're not making any money on a $5 office visit. Most of them these days, the primary copay is 0. But most everything now is done with electronic medical records. If you have DuPage Medical Group, you know my chart. And all you do is you text, you message the doctor, you know, my knee is killing me, can I get an authorization? And as long as they know you and they know you're a solid citizen, typically you wouldn't even need to go in for the referral. But yes, on an HMO chassis, you got to stay within their network of doctors and hospitals. On a PPO, you've just got to stay within the company's insurance and anybody that accepts that insurance. It's a much broader selection.
Could I, for example, pick a specialist that I've had people that's good and then have the doctor refer me?
No, typically they're going to refer by the incident of what you're experiencing. They know where they can direct you, where they've got spaces available for the orthopedic surgeon. You might not get the guy you want. That's what an HMO is you've agreed to see their guys, not your guys. And that's always an issue when you start dealing on this side of the equation. Cards on the table. Something goes wrong. On this side of the equation, we got a guy, and he's a pretty good guy. But if something goes wrong, you may not want a guy, you may want the guy. That's what you get on this side of the equation. But everybody's needs are different. Everybody's situation is unique. All these different companies and all these different options for coverage, and they're all there on the field of play. A and B don't cover everything. So we want to pick up a supplement and a drug program if we travel this pathway called Original Medicare, and there's a lot of good reasons to do that. You might entertain the thought of going with an Advantage program. And there's a lot of good reasons to do that too. But the key there is you got to see it all to understand it and appreciate it. Please.
Could you explain that first year of trying the Advantage plan without penalty? I didn't quite understand that.
It's a trial right. Medicare understands that you might be a little scared. This is something different and new. You've been over here and you're comfortable with this, and this is what all your friends did, but maybe that might be worth a try. And you get a 1-year trial right. In that 1 year, anytime in the first year, you decide that, you know what, this isn't right, I want to come back over here. Anytime in the first year, guaranteed your return over here. Take you right back to your supplement, right back to your drug program as of the first of the next month. After that year, wow, there's a lot of money left in the cookie jar. You want to let it roll, and it will. It'll roll over automatically, and maybe you take it for another year. At that point, you've committed, and you could get out every year during the annual election period. That's where we are right now. But Medicare protects us even more. Medicare says if you're in one of these programs and you found out that the benefits changed, how did that happen? Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, hectic, didn't even notice that maybe your medical group isn't over here anymore. Medicare on the Advantage chassis gives you all of January, all of February, and all of March. You get a do-over. If you found out that your HMO wasn't what you wanted it to be, and look, there's a 0 premium PPO, you get a 1-for-1 change in that 3-month period. That makes these even more flexible, even more utilizable, even more consumer friendly. You got a new best friend in the world. It's called Medicare. Please.
Can you touch on travel abroad?
Sure. Foreign travel emergency. Most of the supplements cover it. The way the supplements cover it is they say if you break your leg in Dublin, you're going to have to pay for it there. They have no idea what Medicare is in Dublin. So you'll pay for it there. You'll bring the bills back here. On the supplemental chassis, you'd have a $250 deductible, after which they'd split that with you 80-20. On the Advantage chassis, they cover international travel just like it was an in-network event here. So that same broken leg, for example, most of those Advantage programs, somewhere between $100 and $120 to pay for that. I would still recommend that you consider travel insurance if you're taking the trip of a life, because all they're going to do there is fix the broken leg. And that was okay, and the broken leg was fixed, and you'll be okay, but wait a second, where'd my cruise ship go? It's gone.
So how do you find out about that?
About trip insurance?
Find out travel insurance.
Oh, there's any number of places you could do that. Most travel agents would have that for you. Blue Cross has a good program called Geo Blue, but again, that's just medical. When you have true travel insurance, they lost your bags, your flight was canceled, you missed your connection, that's what travel insurance does, okay?
And you can get that through the airlines.
Sure, too. Please.
Do you need a supplemental insurance if you are still working? And I'm still working, but I'll be 65 in just like a couple of months.
And there are more than 20 people where you work.
Oh, absolutely.
That's called creditable coverage. Creditable coverage delays your need to go get these products. But I would always say it's worth a reality check, especially when it's husband and wife, because the wife works there, they love her, she's getting great benefits, and the husband's along for the ride. Most couples would look at that monthly bill and say, yeah, we pay $500 a month for our health insurance. It's $250 on her and $250 on me. No, it's not. She's about 1/3 of that because she works there. You're about 2/3 of that because you don't. And when you look at that amount of money and you start to spend it over here, this can frequently be a better alternative.
Is Medicare my employer primary?
Because there's more than 20 people that work there. It's creditable coverage. That remains primary. And I would suggest to you, you do not need to activate B. You could go ahead and start the A. It couldn't hurt you because there's no premium on that.
And then I still would not need a supplemental then?
No, because you've got coverage through work. Now, one day, you may decide to retire, at which point you're going to fire up the B, and then it's game on.
Is that considered a life event where, because it would happen after the enrollment period?
Okay, it would be a special election period is what we have. That's what we call it. Everything's got a different term. Okay. So here tonight, you guys have passed Medicare 101. I am so proud of you. What you want to know is that if you got 70% of this, you get a passing grade. I mean, there's just too much here to absorb. There's a lot going on. But the key there is to at least consider, Robin and I You don't pay us. What we do is we help you navigate this, because I've seen this mistakes made in every possible box that you can imagine. The insurance companies reimburse us. What we do is try to find you the best value and keep you happy for years to come. And we want you to tell all your friends when they say this Medicare thing is really confusing, what did you do? You're going to say, I got a guy, all right? Because in this world, I would say you need a navigator. It's no charge to you. All we're going to help you do is make smart decisions. The frustrating part for us is when we run into people like that woman last week. She's paying $135 for her drug program. She needed a $15 drug program, and she had no idea because she didn't make smart choices up front. We represent all the companies, and we would love to work with you. So I say thank you very much. I think I concluded brilliantly. Let's get out of here. Thank you. Yay! You never started the wave.